Okay, so starting with the concept of hybridization. By definition, hybridization is mixing. You have done hybridization in biology also. It's a mixing of genetic material to create something which has the best of both the properties. Okay. Similarly, in chemistry, hybridization is intermixing of atomic orbitals. So it is the intermixing of atomic orbitals of comparable energy. I'll just elaborate on the point a little later. With the redistribution of energy to form equivalent orbitals, and these equivalent orbitals are called hybrid orbitals. So the atomic orbitals mix, they combine prior to bonding. Before bonding can happen, this is, remember, hybridization, like the VSEPR theory, when we talk about only the central atom, in hybridization also we are talking only about the central atom and no other atom. So what is hybridization? It states that before bonding can happen, the atomic orbitals of the central atom, they add up so that the redistribution of energies takes place, right? And because of the redistribution of energy, we get an equal set of orbitals with equal energy. So there's redistribution of energy and everything changes. That is called hybridization. Now it is this hybrid orbital which can form a bond now. So to form a bond, the basic requirement for the central atom is to undergo hybridization. Now just going back to the VBT a bit, remember the major problem with VBT1, that it could not explain the paramagnetic behavior of oxygen. And secondly, we found that with molecules, it could not explain their shape or the geometry which had been established by the VSEPR could not be re-established by the valence bond theory. But valence bond theory gave us a very important tool of sigma and pi bonds which we are going to use for hybridization. So what do you have to remember for hybridization? The orbitals add up to form equivalent orbitals where there's complete redistribution of energy. They become all equal before they can form a bond, right? And remember, these hybrid orbitals can only form a sigma bond. So these hybrid orbitals are sigma bonds. So whenever there's a sigma bond, it is due to the hybrid orbital. So this means, what are the orbitals which are forming pi bonds? You will see in a while. Now before I tell you the basics about hybridization, I'll go back a bit. I will go back to what you had learned in your previous grades, and I'm going to use that to explain hybridization. But before that, one quick word about comparable energies. This means when the orbitals are mixing, for example, a 2s can mix with a 2p. This is hybridization possible. A 2s and a 3p, there is a large difference in energy, so hybridization not possible. So by comparable, I mean that they are comparable in terms of the energies. So a 2s can combine with a 2p. A 3s can combine with a 3p, but if the orbitals are too different energy-wise, there is no hybridization between the two orbitals, right? Okay, now coming to the kind of hybrid orbital, let's see what kind of hybrid orbitals we get on mixing orbitals. So if an s combines with one p, now remember they have to be comparable energy. So a 2s with a 2p, a 3s with a 3p. If they combine, the orbital which we get is called sp. It's called the sp hybrid orbital. I'm just giving you the nomenclature. I'm telling you nothing else. It's called the sp hybridized orbital, right? Now how many p orbitals are there? There are 3 p orbitals, px, py, pz. So if an s combines with 2p orbital, let's say it combines with the px and py, it forms sp. How many orbitals? P? 2p orbitals. So we call it sp2 hybrid orbitals. 1p orbital still left, so there can be another kind of hybridization where 1s combines with all the 3p orbitals. It's called sp3. What does the 3 denote? 3p orbitals. Before I move on further, what is the noteworthy point? What do you have to note down? What do you have to apply logic and keep it in your mind when you're doing hybridization? See, how many atomic orbitals are combining? One of s, one of p. They have to be comparable energy that we already established. So when 1s combines with 1p, what do we get? sp. How many hybrid orbitals? 2. sp. They are called sp, but we get 2 orbitals. When 1s combines with 2p orbitals, we get sp2. Again, 2 plus 1, 3 hybrid orbitals. When 1s combines with 3, we get sp3. 3 plus 1, 4, 4 hybrid orbitals. So we can say safely that the combining atomic orbitals is equal to the number of hybrid orbitals we get, right? We are going to establish this more later. Okay. Now we are done with all the p's. Now suppose I need, if for a particular compound, it needs more orbitals. So what will it do? What will it resort to? The next. The next is d. So if it takes 1d, what will the nomenclature be? 1 of s, 3 of p, and 1 of d. It is called sp3d hybrid orbital, and they can also be 3 of p and 2 of d. Let's say d, x, y. I'm just taking a random nomenclature as of now. By random I mean I'm picking d orbitals in random. sp3, 2d orbitals, d2, and so on and so forth. Okay, and you will see how this theory beautifully complements the VSEPR theory. So where the VSEPR theory ended, this took off. So VSEPR theory talks only about geometry, it tells us how the geometry. Valence bond theory only about bonding, it says how the bonding. So the hybridization is a theory which brings the VSEPR and the valence bond theory together. And it weaves them in together beautifully to answer questions which were not answered by the two theories. Okay, having understood that, the next question that comes to my mind, which I have to answer is, how do I figure out what kind of hybridization? If I can figure out the kind of hybridization, I'll be able to work my way through. So the first thing which I'm going to do is teach you how to calculate, find out what is the hybridization. Reminding you one important point, remember hybridization is only for the central atom. Hybridization does not refer to any other atom than the central atom. Like the VSEPR, we are still talking about the central atom only. Okay, let's take the examples which you have done in your previous classes. So I'm taking 3 examples. So this is methane, ethene, ethyne. Also remember one thing I told you a little while back, that the sigma bonds can be formed only by the hybrid orbitals. The hybrid orbitals cannot form any other kind of bond. They will form only the sigma bond, right? So now, what is the cheat sheet? How should you approach hybridization in general to make your life easy? Now, we can draw the structure of all these molecules because we've already studied so much about Lewis bonding, covalent bonding, structures, VSEPR theory, so we should be able to draw, and the VBT, we should be able to draw the structure. So the first thing is, take a while, let's draw the structure of these molecules. There we go. So we have drawn the structure. So the first step, done. Okay, what is the second step? Count the sigma bonds. Because the sigma bonds are key to answer the hybridization problem. So let's count it together. Now remember only the central atom. So here my carbon is my central atom. It is forming 4 sigma bonds. Okay, likewise do for the rest also. So we figured this out. We figured out that in this there is only one central carbon which is forming 4 sigma bonds. In this we figured out that both these carbons each form 3 sigma bonds, and here both these carbons each form 2 sigma bonds. Okay. So what? Now what? Now these sigma bonds, the number of sigma bonds are equal to the number of hybrid orbital this atom needs. This is what we need to remember. This is as simple as it gets. It can't get simpler than this. So now look at the number of sigma bonds. So if I can write, now remember, this is only for our consumption. This means we never write for the paper. But this is for our understanding. So what do we say in our minds? This is the important mantra which we are going to use. So once I have figured out the number of sigma bonds, I should be able to know, calculate, predict the hybridization by doing nothing but just by looking at the structure. Okay, there we go. Carbon, in the first case, methane, has 4 sigma bonds. Now, out of all the hybridization we have written, let's figure out which hybridization provides me 4 hybrid orbitals. Let's look at the first one. How many hybrid orbitals does it produce? 1 plus 1, 2. No, doesn't fulfill our condition. This produces 2 plus 1, 3. No, I need a 4. This 3 plus 1, 4. There we go. So this means I have found out the hybridization which matches with the number of sigma bonds it forms. So I am just matching. So what did I match? What does methane match with? What is the hybridization of carbon? If I have counted my sigma bonds correctly, if you make a mistake here, all your prediction will fall flat. So if I made my prediction correct here, I have done the calculations correct, my hybridization prediction would be bang on. So what is the hybridization of the central carbon? sp3. So if you've been able to understand and do that, you have done wonders, because you have conquered most of hybridization. So all that we are left to do now is just to draw those hybrid orbitals, which is going to be cakewalk once you do this. Okay, the next bit, look at both the carbons of ethene. Now each has 3 sigma bonds. So take a while and take a guess. Which of these hybrid orbitals will it match? 3 sigma bonds require 3 hybrid orbitals. What does it match with? Okay, I hope all of you got the answer as sp2, because sp2 has 3 hybrid orbitals and I need 3 sigma. Check if you can do it for ethane. Children, once you can draw the Lewis structures, you can predict the hybridization of any atom on this. I mean, on the there is nothing stopping you from doing that. Okay, there we go. The last one, 2 sigma bonds, so 2 hybrid orbitals. Which is it? If you have done this by now, you are good to go. Now the next part. Okay, I have taken down a few more examples to kind of, now I'm going to add on to your understanding. The first one is carbon dioxide, ethane and ammonia. I have made a smiley because that will give us also a new rule which we are going to use. Count the sigma bonds for all of them. Take a while, count the sigma bonds. Remember children, if you make a mistake here, then you are lost. So this, if you have measured, if you have marked it correctly, 2 sigma. Each carbon forms 4 sigma bonds, and I will wait for that one. Now this requires 2 sigma, so it requires 2 hybrid orbitals. So by now you've become good with it. So what is it? An sp hybridized. S and p, 2 orbitals. So it's this carbon. Remember, it's only the central atom we are talking about. It's sp. Whether I talk about this or this, it doesn't matter. Both have the same hybridization. 4 sigma bonds. I need 4 hybrid orbitals. sp3. If you have done this, give yourself a pat on the back. Now, what about cases where there are lone pairs? You know, hybridization assumes the lone pair also like a sigma bond. So whenever you are counting sigma bonds, that's why a smiley, remember to include the lone pair of electrons too. So the ammonia will remind you, the smiley will remind you that whenever you are counting the sigma bonds, please include the lone pairs as well. So it's requested. So actually 4 sigma. I have included the lone pair. What is the hybridization on nitrogen there for 4? sp3. If you understood this, try out water. What do I have to do? Don't forget to include these. So how many sigma? 4 sigma. What is the hybridization? So like I told you, once you understood this, there's no stopping you. PCl5. Remember, it's trigonal bipyramidal. No lone pairs. How many sigma bonds? 5. Predict hybridization. Where are 5? This is 2, 3, 4. There we go. So, once you've understood this, this is the basis of hybridization. Now, try any molecule. You will always be able to do anything, any molecule whose structure you know and can draw correctly. Okay, these are the main rules of hybridization, some of which we have already discussed while explaining the concept to you. Atomic orbitals with comparable energies overlap. So you will never have a 2s overlapping with a 3p or a 2p overlapping with a 4s for that matter, because the energies are very different. So they have to have some energy, the energies have to be comparable. Now the number of atomic orbitals which combine is equal to the number of hybrid orbitals which are formed. But remember children, unlike the valence bond theory where atomic orbitals do not lose their identity, in hybridization the atomic orbitals completely lose their identity. So we get absolutely new orbitals now in terms of energy and shape. Hybrid orbitals are directional. This means they are responsible for the geometry of the molecule. That is where it supports the VSEPR theory. And it says that the dominating molecule decides the shape. This is to say, we don't spend too much of time thinking about it. It's like, suppose an S combines with a P. Now S is non-directional, but P is along the Px, Py, Pz. So it is probably P which decides the directional nature of the molecule. But don't think too much about it. Now, when hybridization happens, hybridization can happen with orbitals containing both paired and unpaired electrons. So presence of unpaired electron is not a prerequisite for hybridization. The most important point I've written with a different color is hybridization is used for the central atom only, this concept. And remember, don't write it anywhere, but this is for your own understanding, that hybrid orbitals can only form sigma bonds. That is what has helped us decode hybridization in the first place. Remember, the first hybrid orbital which we are going to discuss is the sp3 hybrid orbitals. How many orbitals are there? There are 4 hybrid orbitals. So obviously these are formed by 4 atomic orbitals. Like in our last section, which are they? This is one of S and the 3 of P. Px, Py, Pz. And what do they have to remember? They have comparable energies. So let's figure out how they combine and what does the resultant hybrid orbital look like. So S is spherically symmetrical and there are 3 p orbitals along the 3 axes, Px, they are shape of a dumbbell, remember, Py and right? What are we doing? We are adding them up. Simply adding. Now what does adding mean? I am mixing them. So think of it as children you were given clay to play with, Play-Doh, we call it Play-Doh. Some of us might still be playing with them, there's no age to stop playing with them. So suppose I give you 2 colors, a yellow and a blue. So once you mix them, the 2 together, there's no way you can separate the 2 colors, right? That is exactly what happens here. So the moment you mix them, it forms its own unique hybrid orbital, which you cannot identify where is S and where is P. So I'm adding them up. So I add them up, what do I get? sp3. Now what does sp3 look like? sp3 looks like has a tetrahedral geometry with bond angle of 109.5 degrees or 109 degrees 28 minutes. So this means each of these orbitals, what has happened? 1, 2, 3, 4 orbitals have combined. And there is, remember when I was talking about 2 kinds of interference, constructive and destructive. So there is a small lobe also to show destructive. This means the orbitals might have, the wave functions might have destructively met also. But we are not going into details of that. They are small lobes. So basically 1, 2, 3, 4 atomic orbitals. So I get 1, 2, 3, 4. And how do they look? They look exactly identical. I cannot figure out which is the S and which is the 2p part because I have mixed the 2 clays together. They have become one now. So this is what an sp3 hybridized orbital is. Now when you go back and recall the VSEPR theory, all the examples of AB4 model which you did now, AB4 and AB4 with some lone pairs, the exceptions, all fit into this hybridization. So a CH4, remember we did this example, we did ammonia, we did water, remember, do you remember 4 sigma balls on sp3? Can you see how, and ethane also we did? So can you see how the theory of hybridization very smartly, clearly and very nicely integrates the, so it starts where VSEPR ended, right? So VSEPR ended at the shapes. So it's now explaining how these shapes might have formed. So it's going deeper. It says that pure atomic orbitals don't form a bond. So now carbon. So in this case, the central atom undergoes hybridization to create these orbitals. This is what sp3 is. Now I'm going to take one example to explain how bonding occurs using these hybrid orbitals. Okay, I'm going to explain this vis-a-vis methane. Okay. Once you understand one, there are any number of examples you'll be able to do yourself. So what I have written on the board is the electronic configuration of the central atom. Now, if I look at the electronic configuration, I find that there are only 2 unpaired electrons. Now, remember, it is essential for bond formation to have unpaired electrons. Otherwise, how will they form a bond? Na? Now, according to this, carbon should be divalent. It is capable of forming only 2 bonds. Do you see that? So now, valence bond theory would have failed because valence bond theory doesn't say and go beyond this. So, valence bond theory wouldn't have been able to explain methane at all. So, what do we say? What does the hybridization theory say? It says, because carbon is tetravalent, we all know carbon form 4 bonds. So what might be happening is, how is a bond formed when carbon and hydrogen, they approach each other? This approach brings about some energy, repulsive energy. Repulsive energy is always more. So this energy that is caused by the repulsion between the carbon and hydrogen provides enough energy for the 2s electron. Remember, these 2 are the valence shell. The 2s electron to unpair and go to the vacant p orbital. So that is called the excited state. Why excited state? Because it's short-lived and it's not the natural state. And what is the natural state called in chemistry? The ground state. So the ground state cannot explain bonding because the ground state, as per the ground state, there are only 2 unpaired electrons. There should be 2 bonds. But we know the carbon is tetravalent in nature, so we need 4 unpaired electrons. So how are we unpairing? So the 1s, nothing happens because that's a core electron. So the energy of repulsion causes the electron in 2s to unpair. And where will it go? To the vacant p orbital. So what have I created? We have created 4 not lone pairs, 4 unpaired electrons. 4 bonding. It is these 4 unpaired electrons present in these 4 orbitals which undergo hybridization. So the 2s and the 2p, all the 2p hybridize to form these sp hybridized orbital. And how do I know it's sp3? Because I am smart enough, so I have counted the number of sigma bonds and they were coming out to be 4. So I know the carbon will have to be sp3 to accommodate for this. Okay, alright. Now, so carbon here is sp3. So I'll write carbon so that you can figure out what atom I'm talking about. Okay. Now, what is the electronic configuration of hydrogen? Hydrogen has 1 electron in the 1s orbital. And this already has 1 each. These are the electrons present on carbon, 4 electrons. Okay. Now, these 4 hybrid orbitals overlap with the 1s orbital of hydrogen, tearing it up. Now, there we use the valence bond theory. We are using the concept of overlap to do this. Forming 4 sigma bonds. That explains the tetrahedral nature of this bond, and that explains the formation of the sp3 hybridization, therefore explains the shape and the angle 109.5 and shows how the hybrid orbital of carbon is responsible for the formation in methane.